I love to cook at home, and having good kitchenware makes all the difference in the world. Not only does good equipment make prep and cooking easier, but it makes it more enjoyable. This is why both Joel and I are huge fans of Made in Cookware. Their wide range of cookware, from pots and pans to knives and flatware and even glassware, are designed to be professional quality for right in your home. Joel is a big fan of their knife sets, and I just upgraded all of our stock pots and saucepans to made in stainless steel ones. This goes along with my many other stainless steel, carbon steel pans that I have. I have over a dozen pieces, and I absolutely swear by Made In's products. Next, I'm getting a set of beer glasses. Yes, beer glasses for the whole podcast crew. Take your home cooking to the next level by upgrading your cookware by going to unitedwedrink.com/madein. That's MADEIN. Find out why pros like Grant Achatz, Sean Brock, Nancy Silverton, and Eric Repair trust Made In. Go to unitedwedrink.com/madein. That's MADEIN, and upgrade your kitchen and cooking today. The opinions and statements in this podcast do not represent those of the host's employers, coworkers, family, or imaginary friends. Now enjoy the show.
Happy hour, more like amateur hour. Welcome to United We Drink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to what will become the loneliest podcast that we ever known. Welcome to United We Drink, right here on unitedwedrink.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and wherever fine podcasts are found. My name is Mikey Revich, and boy, are sleeping patterns for small children a fucking bitch. That's about all I have to say about that. With me, as always, is my co-host, a man who will say it's an honor and a privilege, a man who was trying to tell me that everything will be fine once my kid is 15 and he doesn't have a 15-year-old. It's Kevin Abbott.
Mike, am I not enough for you? Is that what you're saying? You're just purely going to be lonely forever because Joel's gone and just I cannot fill that void myself?
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
I think I have my answer. How about the people? How about the people listening? Are they enough for you, Mike? Can they
No.
fill that void?
No. I need like another 500 or so of them to really start to feel fulfilled. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell other people to tune in.
Help Mike avoid depression and misery by getting a few more downloads.
Misery loves company. So that's what I'm told, right?
Yeah.
Kevin, what are you drinking here tonight?
Well, I am drinking a Spindrift, the lemon lime Spindrift, just to needle Joel. Yeah, because he hates Spindrift for some odd reason. And I'm also drinking a beer that you might be familiar with, Mike, a Sam Smith Oatmeal Stout.
Ah, that I am.
And this is the last Sam Smith Oatmeal Stout from the 4-pack that I purchased from Mike's appearance on my old favorite Friday from Barrel of Monks Brewing that we did a couple weeks ago. So I am enjoying this very, very much, and I appreciate the fact that you picked out a great beer.
It is fantastic beer. And yeah, if you haven't seen that video, go over to Barrel of Monks social media and you can see that fun video that Kevin and I did. It's on their Instagram reels and on their YouTube. Hey,
Yeah,
look
no-
at me. I did a thing. I said
Ye-
things for you.
You plugged it. You plugged the social media, and I love it. Every second of it. Thank you, Mike. You do it
Nope.
so much better than I do.
I'll send your wife my bill because I know she pays for that stuff. I too am drinking a Spindrift. I have the half and half, the Arnold Palmer, if you will, one that is, I think, my favorite one right now.
Wheel.
Yes, I think you. I've only seen it at Trader Joe's, and it's fantastic. Just the right amount of tea, right amount of lemon. Um, I love this one so much. And I'm drinking it out of a glass because I didn't have any cold ones, so I had to put it over ice.
It looks like you're drinking an Arnold Palmer just by color.
Yes, that is something about them. I do have one quick gear to grind with Spindrift because they have like on their can, it's like sparkling water, fresh squeezed juice. Yep, that's it. But when you go to their grapefruit one, which by the way has grapefruit, orange, and lemon juice in it, it then also has hibiscus for color. So it's not just sparkling water and fresh squeezed juice. Yup, that's it.
This
Nope.
is the kind of hard-hitting journalism and investigative reporting that the people have come
You,
to expect from the United We Drink podcast.
I spent all afternoon digging deep, going down the rabbit hole, and then realizing I have one of these cans in my refrigerator. I should just read it.
Reading can after can, just camped out at a Publix near you, just reading cans, trying to find lies.
I am also drinking what a beer that would probably be on your old favorite Friday. It's Terrapin Hopsecutioner IPA.
That's one that has come up. I have not had one of those in a long time, Mike. Tell me a little bit about that.
I really like it. My wife picked up the Terrapin IPA pack at Costco. All free plugs tonight for big box retailers. And it has Hopsecutioner, it has Recreation Ale, it has I can't remember what it's called. It's one of the Crunkles, and it's like passion fruit, orange, guava IPA, and then it has a double IPA in it. And this they on Hopsecutioner they put on there Warrior, Chinook, Simcoe, Amarillo, Cascade, Centennial, like so much old school hop
Mm-hmm.
in there with a little bit of Simcoe, a little bit of Amarillo, which are kind of old school hops by this point in time.
Yeah.
Like all those C's with Warrior. This is such a tasty beer. Like it's got a little bit of the malty character. It's not a West Coast, but it's like what we used to think of as East Coast IPAs, like our 90 minutes and beers like that.
It's interesting that you say that because it will have come out by the time this show airs. Is the one I recorded for this week was Loose Cannon by
Oh,
Heavy
sweet.
Seas,
Yeah.
which we called Hop 3 Ale back in the
Yeah.
day, Clipper City Brewing before they became Heavy Seas exclusively. And the beer is delicious, and I used to drink that a lot, and that was probably the first beer I had from them. And has almost an amber color. It's really malty. It's Palisade, Simcoe, and Centennial, I believe. And I looked at this and I said, man, I used to use Palisade quite a bit back in the day, and I haven't even heard anyone mention that hop in years. And it has a lot of those kind of like resiny,
Mhm.
citrus, fruity, resiny kind of flavors. Uh, so yeah, I was asking Ralph. This is why I was bringing this up because you said the East Coast IPA thing. Is that I asked him? I said, this has a West Coast kind of hop bill with the kind of flavor profile and a little bit of bitterness, but it's got this malt bill that's definitely not West Coast. It's not like
Yeah.
what the Racer 5 would have been or Stone's IPA. And I
You got
asked
some
him what he
crystal
would
malt
call
in
it.
there.
Yeah, exactly. And I asked him what he would call it, and he said he thought of it as a Midwestern IPA. And he mentioned uh, Bell's Two Hearted in there as being the same kind of style. And it's a 7-minute video, so we don't have that much time to go back and forth. But I don't remember Two Hearted being that malty. I remember that being a little bit lighter in body. But it's interesting to think about these beers the styles or the nuances of these very specific styles that were there before and obviously still being produced now in the wake of everything being a New England hazy IPA.
You know, correct me if I'm wrong, and you might not be able to because you probably don't remember this. Last episode, I believe James mentioned Midwest IPA when talking about Two Hearted,
Yeah.
and all the Centennial that's heavy in that. I mean, I have had a Two Hearted within the last 6 months, and it has a good
I think
malt
I have two.
character too to it.
Yeah.
I this Midwest IPA thing, I feel like is a relatively new term to me. It's not something that I've been very familiar with. I still like to kind of think of this beer, Hopsecutioner, 90 minute. Even I would heavy Loose Cannon as like those original East Coast IPAs, and it be like I know some people will say Northeast are the hazy, New England is the hazy, but yeah, they have a little bit of the caramel malt to them to build that malt character up a bit. I'm now thinking of Titan, even though that's not Titan IPA from Great Divide. That's not a West Coast. It's not an East Coast related brewery, but I felt like that beer was much more malty in character than your
Well,
West Coasts.
Avery Maharaja,
Yeah.
definite malt forward. And most of the beers we're talking about, I believe Hopsecutioner is higher ABV, right? That's a double IPA? Is it not?
7.3.
Okay, so
So it's
maybe
just
not. All the beers we were just talking about, 90-minute, Hopsecutioner, Loose Cannon. Well, obviously, I mentioned Maharaja, all over 7%
yeah.
as well. So they're not your 5%, really clean drinking IPAs either. So it's just an interesting nuance. I love the fact that there's so much specificity in a business that does not thrive in specificity, right? You put IPA in a can, it could mean one of 10,000 different things. But then
Yeah.
in our little groups, we can say, well, that's a Midwest and that's a old school East Coast, or that's a this and that's a this. And they don't really mean anything specifically. They only mean kind of what you want it to mean, which is an interesting little tidbit about our industry.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm going to throw Costco out there again. Like the variety pack options there, my wife has been bringing home has been really fun. Like we had a New Belgium one, a Sierra Nevada one, this Terrapin one. It's nice to get some and fresh too. Like none of this stuff is out of code. Far from it. Like Terrapin uses Best Buy on their cans, and like this Hopsecutioner is Best Buy January of next year.
Hmm.
So I'm assuming relatively fresh. It tastes great. So
I'm adding that one to the list, Mike. Thank you for
yeah,
giving
no
me more
problem.
ammunition for Old Favorite Friday.
I'm gonna have to go out there and grab some Loose Cannon because I didn't realize Heavy Seas was still down here. I thought they might have pulled out of the state, and I actually know someone who works at Heavy Seas who's like the brew house manager there. He won't like it if I say his name because he likes to kind of stay anonymous, but I love the rebranding that they've done over the years for the stuff, and their social media is fantastic. If I know you don't look at it, but they have a lot of fun with their social media, and I dig it. So yeah, I'll have to go look for some Loose Cannon.
The Loose Cannon that I found was at Total Wine and More in Boca, and the Best Buy date on that was in mid-December. So some pretty
Sweet.
fresh beer as well. So I'd highly recommend picking it up.
All right. So for the topic today, I thought it would be fun because Kevin hasn't been on the show the entire time since we've restarted this show. He started with us, I think it was like mid-ish 2021. I think it was around of about. Yeah, he doesn't know. But
I feel like I've always been here, Mike. I feel like I've always been with you. Even when I wasn't on the show, I was kind of there over your shoulder. It was then I was carrying you, my son.
the footsteps in the sand. That was where I was going to go. And I appreciate you for that because I was very drunk. I needed you to carry me. Um, but we went over a lot of stuff early on in the show that I feel like we never really got Kevin's input on. And I think it would be nice to kind of go through some of these topics, not necessarily rapid fire, but not spending an entire episode on them and get kind of Kevin's perspective on these topics. So I went through and I found about 7. We're going to try to get to all 7. If we don't, we don't. If we do, awesome. Um, and I'm going to start with the first thing that we talked about that wasn't the relaunch episode. It was the episode number 2. It is our number 2 most listened to episode of all time after our relaunch. Like still to this day, I go back and I can look at our numbers, and this is still our second most listened to episode. This is work-life balance.
So I just want
And
to say, so it's been all downhill from there.
it has been. It absolutely has been.
Great.
Yes, that is how downhill
Yeah.
works. Okay, so work-life balance.
I'm for it. Next.
Perfect.
No, go
next
ahead.
one. So we got also a ton of feedback from people on this who were so grateful about talking about this because this is an industry that can very much blur the lines between your life in the brewery in work and your life outside of the brewery, because that can have events, that can have social gatherings that are based around beer, and you're talking about beer, you're talking about work. Like very many times when we get together as groups of friends, we're bound to jump into talking about work, and things sometimes don't separate themselves enough. So we talked about how we can separate work from our life outside of work. And is there anything in particular, Kevin, that you do that helps you disconnect from work mode when you get home and kind of just stay away from that?
I have nothing revolutionary when it comes to that. When I get home, I do my best to not answer emails, not even when I get notifications on my phone for emails, I ignore them because I need to make sure that I can, as you say, disconnect and not think about work in those hours. There's too many things going on when you've got a young child in the house, when you have to, that sounds terrible, when you get to spend time with your loved ones and you want to be present there and find out how their days are going. And it's difficult, especially when you have a job that I have now where I theoretically could work 24 hours a day. There's never a time where I could not be doing something. I'm working mostly on a computer from home. So there's always a project. There's always something to do. When I was brewing, I can't brew from home. I can't bring that home with me. I could think about it. I could answer emails, right? I could worry about fermentation or brewing schedule, and I did. But staying off of the devices that are going to remind me of the things I have to do the next day is really, really important. Probably something that's not that healthy, and something that I think my wife doesn't love, is that I don't even like to talk about work in the normal way that a couple will. How was your day? What happened at work today? I don't really even want to talk about it. Even when sometimes big things happen, and I just kind of, I don't want to engage in that. And my wife has had to realize that it's not because I don't want to tell her, it's that I don't really want to engage and talk about work when I'm at home. And there'll be one day every couple weeks where I'll just kind of go off and talk about all the things that have been going on. And she'll be like, wow, that's a lot. Yeah. But I just kind of, when I leave that at work, I want to leave that at work. And I have to be reminded to continue to ask her about her days, because not everyone wants to do that. Some people want to engage in those things. So it's difficult and for everybody, no matter what position you're in, because there's always stressors there. But if you draw a clear delineation line, as I have in my brain, it makes it relatively easy.
Yeah. And, since recording this episode, things have kind of gotten more difficult for me than because when we recorded this episode, I still lived in Philadelphia. I was still working at Moss Mill, uh, just working in the brewery, bartending 1 day a week. It was relatively easy for me to turn off when I went home. It was great to be able to go in, do my work for the day, come home, spend time with my wife, and have the weekends to do whatever. And now fast forward to 2022 and I'm the marketing guy and I have all of our social media built into my phone and getting notifications when messages come in at which people messaging companies at like 9 o'clock at night. It's like, okay. Like I know that I'm not going to answer it, but just seeing those come through as a notification is just like always mind-boggling because to me, I'm not going to message a company at that time. If I like, because one, I'm probably drunk. I shouldn't be if I'm doing that. And I'll wait till the next morning to really hash out what I need to say, or maybe it's not that important. Um, but yeah, it's become a little bit difficult for me to as easily turn that off.
Obviously, when you're in that position, and the fact that you're doing that in a professional manner, I am way too involved in our social media for my level of skill in doing so and the other things I have to do in the brewery. But there's not a lot of people that are there to answer technical questions. And when you have a company that's doing that for you that doesn't really know the operation of the brewery, having that step in between me and them sometimes is just doesn't make a lot of sense. So I end up answering a lot of those kind of questions. And I think, Mike, we should write down all the dumbest things we've heard on these questions, and we should do an entire episode about that because
Oh, that,
the
I
amount of
like
times
that.
that I've had someone go, "What are your hours?" You've found this social media page. You've found the button that allows you to ask me a question, but you didn't find my hours right next to it?
I have
Also,
been asked where are we located? I can't find your address anywhere from a Facebook
right.
message.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets a little bit wild. The other day I got one that just said, "Hey."
Oh, don't engage.
Oh, no, I know, I
Oh,
know, I don't there's nothing, even if it was somebody that meant well, which it isn't, there's nothing good that can come from somebody sending a message like that.
no.
But I'm always dumbfounded by some of the questions and then being able to just, like, link to the thing on the website that is just a Google search away and go, "Well, maybe try here?" Instead of uh, direct messaging a business account at 11:15 on a Saturday night. Hey, that's there's some other avenues is all I'm saying.
um, I have definitely written that down as a future episode. I love that idea.
I'll start banking the ones that I get that are really, really juicy.
Okay. Um, so yeah, like we're both in like I- upper management positions to where I I don't want people to assume that I am available at all hours of the day. And but it is very difficult to truly appear that way when social media doesn't have business hours. And shit just pings on through. Now, I do have like do not disturb on my phone for certain hours. So at like 10 o'clock through 7:30 a.m., no notifications come through on my phone. Uh, and then at 7:30, it just throws them all at me. So that's lovely. But uh, I think that that's something that I could probably utilize a little bit better. I don't know if there's ways for me to do that with specific apps, because if so, then that would make it even easier if I could just be like, Facebook, don't send me any notifications after 5 p.m. Instagram, don't send me, like, same thing. Um, so those are things that I feel like I can do to improve my work-life balance at this point in time. But, like, yeah, it is such a difference between 2019, I think, when we restarted this show, and now. And we've had we've been in pandemic longer uh, with this show than we have not been. So
Hmm.
that's saying something.
When it comes to the entire question of work-life balance, Mike, I'm also a little bit. My perspective is so different because for the first 4 years, 5 years, maybe six of my career in this industry, my entire identity was wrapped up in being working at a brewery. All my friends were brewery people. I lived it, I breathed it. When I went home, I studied it. And because even though I've taken on so much more responsibility and I can take it home, just the metamorphosis of changing and getting different people in my life and just age and knowing when to tap out has changed a lot. So some people from the outside looking in might go, "Oh, Kevin actually takes more stuff home than me." But since it's changed so much in a positive manner over the last 10, 15 years, I just feel like I'm in a good spot with it.
Yeah, and you know what? You bring up a great point there with the identity. And this is something that I've been trying to deal with a lot over the last couple months. My wife has been a big driving force of me dealing with this, and that she has said, like, you don't need to make your job who you are. Like you don't have to be the beer guy, the brewery guy. Like, you don't have to make your life your job and your job your life so much. Sometimes a job is a job, and you just clock out, you go home, you live your life. And uh, I am trying to deal with that the best that I can. And the all the uhs in there are still me processing as I'm talking about this, and trying to separate something that has become a part of me over the last decade, and um, not be so much of when people just say Mike loves beer. Like, I don't like. I just want to be Mike. Like, hey, you know what? I also uh, enjoy photography. I also have my loving family. I also love to cook. I also like a lot of these things that don't need, like, aren't my job, and should be part of who I am, not just beer. So
Just so you know, I just reserved the domains for like MikeLovesCooking.com, MikeLovesFamily.com, and MikeLovesPhotography.com. So
oh, sweet,
if you want to buy them from me at some point, just let me know. I'll give you a deal on the three.
will do, will do. I have to go. Gotta check my portfolio, see how that's doing. It's doing well. Um, yeah, I think this is that was still, some people pop up every now and then and go like, "Hey, I just been going through your old episodes and really loved the work-life balance one." And they are like, "Yeah, you guys have sucked ever since then." But yeah, I appreciate you giving a little bit of insight into how yours is going. Um, we that was episode 2. Episode 4, we talked about industry certifications and education. and we talked about like certified beer serving, Cicerone, um, that type of stuff, but also like forklift certification, um, business side classes and education, brewing school, those types of things. Are there any things that you think are really beneficial, could be really important to aspects of this industry? Are there things that you would want to do to further your education in this industry, um, to get better at your job?
I'm always a fan of education. And I think that the more avenues that are available to people in our industry to get more specialized education, the better. The thing that I worry the most about is when you are in, say, my wife's field of mental health counseling, you need a certain amount of hours working with people. You need oversight. You can't do mental health counseling on an apprenticeship program, right? But you can do welding on an apprenticeship program. You can learn certain skills by doing them and having the right people teach you. What I'm always worried about is when it gets to a point where you need a certain amount of education to enter a field. And this is in the brewing industry, but not making beer. I remember there was a distributor down here that I was told, because early on in my career I didn't know where I was going to go. I was working at a small little brew pub that might have been something big, it might not have been. So I knew people in the that were sales reps and things of that nature. And I always kept my ear to the ground. What do you do here? How do how much do you make? Do you enjoy it? What's the work-life balance, etc. And one of these places that I thought, hey, things don't work out here, I can go there. They said, oh, well, you have to have a bachelor's degree to work as a sales rep. I didn't go to college. And I thought to myself, well, I can sell beer as good or better as anybody else that I know, but I didn't get a bachelor's degree in fine arts or, whatever, so that I can't work at this job. It seems like a barrier that is artificial. It doesn't really reflect what my skill set is and what my talent is. And I think that's what I worry about in the beer industry is when you see, well, we won't hire a brewer that didn't go through brewing school. When my assistant brewer and an amazing brewer who anyone would be lucky to have didn't go to brewing school. He was a home brewer that taught himself. He's an autodidact and he is incredible. And he continues to educate himself and continues to get better. And I'm always just very cognizant of that. I was talking to another fellow brewery owner the other day, and they were saying that years ago, all we wanted was more educated people that had gone to UC Davis or Siebel, and now he's wondering, where are all the home brewers? Where are all the hungry people that are just really, really passionate about this and want to go out there and learn and get their hands dirty? And things have kind of flipped a little bit in the industry. And I'm sure that's not everybody's experience, but maybe it's coming from a person who doesn't have a college education. Maybe I'm defending my own position there. But I think some of this stuff is, I don't want those doors to be put up to block someone that's really passionate and that doesn't have the means to do some of this higher education to stop them from pursuing their dreams.
I I have some issues with some of that because I have noticed some trends towards what you're saying, but it's not necessarily in a good manner. Like for every Ralph that I assume that you're talking about,
I am.
there's probably 10 to 20 fucko McFuck faces who, even if they're homebrewers, they're not going to amount to a whole lot. They're going to pick up bad habits or have bad habits they're going to bring along with them, and they might be more inclined to take shit pay than someone with a little bit more experience. And I I get that there needs to be an entry point, and that there needs to be a place for people who do want to learn and get into this industry, and those people should be paid as well. But if you're looking to fill a position that requires, like, running a canning line, running a bottling line, brewing, CIPing, stuff like that. If a person comes along who has more skill, already has those skills because of either education or experience, I think that those people need to have a little bit more of a place in line than the home brewer who's passionate. Like, if you have the ability to hire the home brewer who's passionate and start them off on the keg washer, and learn about uh, filling kegs, CIPing tanks, all from the ground up, awesome. But a lot of the times, these small breweries, we need someone who can do a lot of different things and get to know them really fast. And hiring a person with those skills who's going to need to be paid more, I think is more important. Um, Sorry if that sounds a bit brash, and it sounds like I'm throwing people who want to get into this industry under the bus, but um, we're trying to run businesses here, and a skilled person is going to get me to my end goal quicker. But like I said, it's, if you have the means to hire a couple different people and have one start off in a different place, awesome. But we don't always have those options.
Well, Mike, the important thing that I was getting at, it's not either or. There's not, what I'm saying is that if someone came to me and I had a position open, I would want to hire the person who had the most experience, the most talent, the most ability.
Well, you
Right?
were saying that, like, you were talking to someone and you're like, I'm sick of seeing all these like the Siebel people. Like, where are the home brewers?
Well, but once again, it's not
That
either
sounded like
or.
an either or thing.
No, it's just saying where are those other people? And by the way, this was a flippant comment made by somebody in the middle of a conversation. This was not a sit down, hey, let's have a real discussion about the state of the
I get
brewing
that, but
industry.
I'm just
It's
saying that what you said sounded like I don't want to deal with those people who have education anymore.
no, well,
They're
first of all, I don't want to misconstrue the conversation I had from somebody else that isn't here, and I didn't mention their name,
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
hope that doesn't matter. But uh, I was trying
No,
to
tell me
qualify.
right now. No.
I was trying to qualify the fact that I don't want undue barriers put up in certain instances at certain size breweries saying we simply will not hire someone without this level of education. When some of the things that we ask people to do not require a an education to learn how to do. These are not incredible, unfathomable concepts that cannot be digested by someone that's working on an apprenticeship level. There's room for everyone here, and if we continue as a as an industry to churn out more and more college educated brewers and brewing technicians and people that work in there in our industry, lab technicians, what have you, they will eventually be so many that they will push out the opportunities for some of the other people in all but the smallest breweries. And if that's what the market does, that's what the market does. What I worry about, and what I'm just reiterating again, is that if there becomes a time it's saying that somehow you can't do this job unless you have this, that's what I always worry about, is that you have to take people on an individual basis. Are they the kind of person that can pick something up quickly? Do you have the time to train somebody, to give someone the opportunity to do something well and see whether they go with it? And that's what I like about it. When I was working as a wine steward, I never got my sommelier certification. I didn't want first of all, I had never wanted to work for Wine Advocate or Wine Spectator. It didn't mean anything to me. I liked learning what I learned. I liked tasting wine. I liked getting good at that, at whatever level I was. But I wasn't interested in getting a certificate that said, "See, I know what I'm talking about." So I thought that I could learn that pretty well by doing, and I've learned brewing, and I did that pretty well by doing. Could I have been better if I went to Siebel? No doubt. More education is always a good thing, but it's just not it's not realistic for so many people, unfortunately.
And you mentioned the certification, the sommelier thing. I'm certified beer server. I've never even attempted the Cicerone exam, let alone anything higher than that. I just don't want to. Like you said, people who take the time to go and do that, I think that that's fucking awesome. But it does take a hell of a lot of time and dedication to studying and researching, and that's just time that I don't have. And like I said, I just don't want to at this point. I'm always for learning. I do love learning in this industry. I love learning outside of this industry. I am a fucking nut for dumb trivia and silly knowledge. Like I'm sure that my wife hates hearing me tell her about like, oh, so I was listening to this podcast today and they were talking about this, and I think that that's so cool. And she's like, mm-hmm. But it's I I I do agree with you on there shouldn't be a standard for entry. And we're actually getting into another episode that I have on the list. That was
Let's
episode number 10, what to expect
roll.
getting into the industry. And we're skipping over a couple things, but it's essentially we're talking about the same thing. And I think that getting into the industry is such a weird fucking thing. Sometimes it's who you know. Sometimes it's probably a lot of the times who you know, more times than not, because I think that's how we both did. We knew our first employer, and we're like, hey, what would it take for me to come work for you? And XYZ, all right, cool. And we became people in the beer industry. And Joel was essentially the same way. I even think that Phil was essentially the same way. And here we all are, and still in this industry. And most of my jobs have been without a CV involved at all since that point in time. Moss Mill was the only one that I had to use a resume to get. And when they're like, "Oh, you have experience," that's crazy. Most of the people that we talked to didn't have any experience. But like, is there anything that you would recommend to a person who is interested in getting into this industry to read up on, to educate themselves on, and to also go an expectation or lack of expectation that they should have when going into this?
I've been on both sides of this. I've been the person who knew somebody and lucky got a job and got another one and another one. And like you, I haven't put a resume together in over 15 years because it was all who I knew. And now I'm in a position where I hire people and I bring people in with various levels of experience and knowledge in the industry. Uh, What I always look for when looking at the people, I've been in a luxury position that most of the people that I've hired into our brewery, several of them worked in the tap room and just showed passion and initiative. And I really have only hired 2 people of the 8 to 10 that have worked in the brewery since our inception almost 8 years ago. I think I've only hired 2 people that had any experience whatsoever in the industry before they were taught by us what to do and how to do it. And I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, it's my way or the highway. No, I love people that bring new ideas and can teach us and can say, oh no, this is the wrong way to do things. That's a very, very good thing. But what I look for really is passion for something, whether it be Ralph with IPAs or someone else with they love a certain Belgian style or they have a passion for the science and the fermentation aspect of it. Someone has a passion for something related to beer and in their spare time will do some studying, will continue to want to learn because they're interested in it is a very, very valuable person because you can help to shift that into different avenues and ask questions and know that they're going to go out and try to find the answers and not just be a mimic and not just do what they were told. That's really, really important, I think, for what I would be looking for. And I think a lot of people that would be hiring people in the brewery would be looking for, and I hope they would be at least, is someone who's going to ask questions. We worked for a brewery, Mike, you and I and Joel, where asking questions was not looked well upon. It was do it my way, and that's the way it's going to be done. And there's a reason why there were problems at that brewery because there's better ways to do things, and you don't always know the right answer. So I think you have to make the connections. But if you can find an avenue where you can bring a skill set, especially to a smaller brewery, where you learn how to do yeast cell counts or you learn how to work in it, use an ATP meter, or I know I'm talking about some things that are beyond the scope of a normal home brewer, but if you have a proclivity for that kind of specialized information, most people will look upon that and go, wow, that's a mind that I want to cultivate. That's somebody who can be very valuable to us. Hopefully we can give them information that they don't have, and they might go away and move up the ladder sooner rather than later, but that's okay too, because we shouldn't be in a position where we're hoarding talent and trying to hold them hostage.
Good. All right, so I'm gonna jump back a few episodes to one that you definitely enjoy talking about, and that's beer and food pairings. Episode number 5, we talked about this. This is kind of this is like your bread and butter. Like, you love dealing with beer and food pairings. You've built an event at your brewery, a monthly event around it. It's kind of your shtick at this point. It's your gimmick, if you will. What is it about beer and food pairings that you enjoy so much? And what is a great comparing pairing and a contrasting pairing that you would say is something that people should really try out?
First of all,
Sorry,
Mike,
I threw a lot of stuff at you.
That's a lot of things, and I have been drinking, so if I don't get to all that, please forgive me.
Okay. What is it that you love the most about like beer and food pairing?
So because I did come from the wine world, and I did that for 7 years, and obviously food and wine, out of the spirits, out of alcohol, right? Your whiskey and distilled spirits, beer and wine. Wine is traditionally the thing that is most paired with food, or the thing that if you've got a restaurant dinner, that's what they're going to be talking about. They're talking about food and wine pairings. So I came from that world and really enjoyed that. And when I got into beer, I realized how complex beer is and how incredible it can be and how well it can pair with food, but it was not looked upon in that really in that light. It was not, didn't have the prestige that wine did. And that was something that frustrated me. And I really wanted people to understand that if you go to Belgium, they're going to pair beer and food. And because of the complexity of malt and hops and the ingredients and things of that nature, you can really do some incredible things with beer and food that you can't do with food and wine pairings. So I think a little bit of as a chip on my shoulder of trying to prove how good these two things can complement each other and the wide range, I should say, of what beers can pair with foods and just the sheer diversity of styles and what they can do. And then to flip the script on that, I also like how bullshit it is in some way, shape, or form because taste is subjective. And as much as I might put together a pairing of something that I absolutely love and I think is incredible and it's going to work perfectly, I can also serve that to you and you can go, no, I don't get that. Or that wasn't a good pairing to me. I
That.
love when.
Go ahead.
Just go ahead.
Sorry. No. Go ahead.
No, anytime you're talking about something that is subjective as taste, there's going to be some kind of bullshit there. And I like the idea of saying, this is what I've presented, this is what I like, this is what I think is going to work well together. If you read books about this, these two things should pair really well together. And you can say, nah, bro, this ain't good. I like this better. And you're not wrong. And I like also pointing that out because it should be that way. It should be that way when you talk about beers that you love. I can go all day and tell you how this beer is better than this beer in objective means, but if subjectively you don't agree, you're not wrong.
So I don't. I really don't even remember what I talked about when we did this episode. But what are the things that I know you love doing with beer pairing is the contrast as opposed to complement. And to me, I think that that's bullshit. Like it makes no sense to me how you can say this thing and this thing are two different things, but their contrast really makes them work. Like what? Like to me, most of the time you say that, I don't understand that, how that works.
Well, I think complementing really is about bringing out the flavors that are already there. And so if you're looking at something like Thai food and you want something like a triple to help to bring out the spices that are evident inside that dish, but a contrast pairing might add something like bitterness to a dish that you wouldn't necessarily want there, you wouldn't think that the dish doesn't have, or acidity that that dish doesn't have. So I think that it's not about saying something that doesn't belong there, but it's something that is not there already. It's not trying to heighten flavors. It's trying to give the thing something it doesn't have. So I think
Give
works.
me an example of a pairing that you really have enjoyed that is a contrast that brings something different to it.
So we did this is a couple years ago, and I don't know why this one's jumping out to me, but a chef did a like a like a pesto falafel. I can't remember if it was over rice or it was over some kind of starch, but it was one of the dinners that we did two different barrel of monks beers with that dish. I can't remember what the one was, but I did a blood orange sour with it. And that is not something that you would immediately say, I need citrus, I need acidity, what have you. And it worked really, really well. It wasn't trying to accentuate the herbaceousness of the pesto, and it was really, really nice together. In fact, it did better. Whatever I can't, like I said, this was 2 years ago, but it won the pairing for that round, even though it was not the first thing that you would think of for that dish. And I thought it
Because
tasted great.
I I use a little bit of lemon when I make my own pesto. So I always am looking to add that acid into there. So I like uh, it's not a too far off of a thought, but I get where you're going with the thought on that.
Well, all these ingredients, you can't, I mean, you're not going to, I think what people sometimes are like thinking about when they're looking at this is like, are you going to add, I'm trying to think
Are
of things that
are
are
you doing a West
extremely,
Coast IPA with a chocolate cake? Like that to me is like a weird. That's contrast.
okay.
But
But the thing is, if you are looking at, but there's logic to some of that too. If you, I'm not saying I haven't tried those two things together, but the fact of the matter is, what is one of the things you get out of a West Coast IPA? You get bitterness. If you have the difference between milk chocolate and dark chocolate, you have bitterness, right? That's one of the things you get with that baker's chocolate kind of flavor. So we know that chocolate can work with a little bit of bitterness. And we know that chocolate can work with citrus, right? You got chocolate covered oranges all the time. If you look at if you look at the culinary world, everything kind of pairs with everything else in some way, shape, or form. Even if it's not the perfect pairing, it can work, and some chef has experimented with it. And if you look at the basic flavors, salt, fat, acid, heat, if you look at just the basic ways that we taste things, there's some really interesting ways that you can go with pairings. And sometimes the ones you say that this is kind of something that we have built at Barrel of Monks and myself. I consider myself to be sort of an expert in this, but for those beer dinners that we do, I lose a lot. And I pick beers that I think are going to pair really well, and I go and I put them out there, and there are times when I will go, this is hands down the best pairing possible. I've tasted the beers side by side. This is a better pairing with this dish. And I get blown out of the water by 50 people who are tasting themselves and saying, I like this other pairing, which I think is not a good pairing at all. And it's happened the other way, where I thought my pairing wasn't good, and the people said, nope, this pairing was better. So that's what it comes down to when I say that's a little bit, everything's a little bit bullshit when it comes to this. There's no science. Well, there's some science to it. But when you have the way that people taste and super tasters and people that taste cilantro as soap, everything comes down to subjectivity of it. And you can find some really, really interesting things that work like you would not expect them to. And that's when it's really fun.
yeah, I mean, just subtle example of how those differences in the same thing. Like tonight, I made a little uh, gnocchi with broccoli rabe and a tomato pesto from Trader Joe's that I think is pretty cool. I love broccoli rabe. It's probably one of my favorite vegetables. The bitterness in it, I know throws a lot of people off. They hate
I,
it.
I love it too.
But it is this it's bitter, but I don't know. It like just so inviting and so savory that I could eat broccoli rabe every day. Like when I'm chopping it, I'm just taking stalks and chewing on them as I'm chopping it before I even cook it. I love the bitterness of that so much. But yeah, I mean, you you can throw something out there and have a great pairing, and just the crowd is not for it. Also, I love your little reference to Samin's book there with salt, fat, acid,
Yeah,
heat.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great book, great show.
The
They adapted to.
And the other thing I have to say about pairings, which is something that a lot of breweries still do and they're involved in, is that at the end of the day, most people, at least what I find, maybe it's a majority, maybe it's a slight majority, they still just pick the beer they like best, whether or not it
Yeah,
pairs well or
yeah.
not. I just did a dinner, a beer dinner, a versus what we call ours a throwdown dinner. It was a throwdown type dinner with my brother-in-law Brad, and before the third course came out, a guy was sipping my beer and said, "This is the first round that you lost." And I said, "You haven't even got the food yet." And he's like, "What?" I said, you're trying to taste the food and drink the beer and see which one of these beers paired better. Have you just been picking the beer you like? Oh, yeah. Well, that's not what we're here for. At the end of the day, if it's the person that goes on to Untapped and goes, West Coast IPA, 2 out of 5. I hate West Coast IPAs. Well, then don't rate a West Coast IPA. If you don't like a sour, you don't like an imperial stout, or you don't like a whatever, or a saison, it's really, really hard for people to say, oh, this saison paired better than the East Coast New England IPA that I like more with this dish. So that's the other fudge factor that comes into this that just makes it a little bit of the wild, wild west, but it's still fun.
So we are running a little bit long here, so I'm gonna chop off a couple ones here. I'm gonna end this with I think this is a good one to end with. We talked about bucket lists in the beer industry, or just beer in general. Like, what are some beer related bucket list things that you have on your list? For example, just not to just throw this out there at you without any reference, like, I want to go to Munich and go to Oktoberfest, like the proper Oktoberfest in Munich one day. I think that that would be so much fun. It's something I want to do. I don't remember. I think Phil talked about going to like Russian River for Pliny the Younger release one day. Like it doesn't have to be one thing. It could be a few things. Like, are there any things on there that you absolutely are like, yeah, that's something I want to do in the beer world by the time I kick the bucket?
I think just in general, going to Europe and the German beer culture, the Belgian beer culture, visiting those areas, and because these are beer styles, and I know, listen, the Belgian beer culture, for instance, they're making tons of IPAs over there, and they're innovating and doing new things all the time. I think that we have this image of Belgian beer, and because I work and own a Belgian inspired brewery, something that we think about all the time. But I think a lot of people just think, oh, it's just a bunch of people in robes making the same recipe they've made for 200 years. That's not really what happens. There is the fact of the legacy and the classic nature of those styles that is still probably more revered there than it is here for our legacy brands, but we simply haven't been around that long. So it's kind of hard to tell. But just going there and drinking really, really well made, in some ways very simple beers that have stood the test of time for a reason, visiting breweries like that, being in a culture that really respects those beers, whether or not things are changing and innovating or not, but still has like have their history rooted in them, would be really, really nice. And I enjoy that, like I said, in Germany and in Belgium as well. And my partners at Barrel of Monks have gone. Bill McPhee goes to Belgium, I believe, every single year, and he's always like, "You got to go, you got to go." There was a time in my life where I thought, "Oh, I might be able to go sometime soon," and then you have a kid, and just being away for a week on a very selfish beer trip for yourself doesn't seem like the best option. So I'd like to do that at some point. But really, there's not a lot of other things in beer that I want to do specifically, like go to a certain beer release or go to a particular brewery. What I want to do in general is when I travel, if I'm going to go out to California or if I'm going to go visit my dad in Michigan, the beer related bucket list stuff is go to the local brew pub and hopefully find a really killer Dortmunder. And if I'm lucky, the brewer's there and I can share a couple words and check out his system and just tell him, hey man, this beer's really, really good. And whether or not you're getting the love from the locals from it, or you'll ever put it in a package and put it on a grocery store shelf, this is incredible. You should keep doing this. That's what I love about the industry and what I look forward to whenever I travel and get a chance to be out and about. And That's really it. I'm seeking simplicity these days. Maybe something on a bucket list one day is having a little brew pub that does not have to pay my bills because I'm independently wealthy in my dreams. And I can just do and have a great brewer that I can pay very well just to make incredible lagers and great brown ales and ambers and just have a place to go and go, man, at least we got this. This is incredible. Uh, Maybe that's a thing, but that may be more of a fantasy than a bucket list kind of deal.
So, I have another quick question for you because you brought up Dortmunder, and we recently had friend of the show, Sam Tierney from Firestone Walker, ask us what is up with there being so many Dortmunders in Florida in a climate that should not scream Dortmunder, but more of like a Helles style. He's the brewer at the Propagator, their L.A. brew pub, and he was recently over in like St. Pete, Tampa, and he was like blown away by the amount of Dortmunders. And he's like, I wouldn't think that Dortmunder would be such a hot style out here. Would think that Helles would be more up the alley of hot weather type of thing. So I remember you talking about Gatlin Hall, their Dortmunder, and I've seen a few of these at places recently, and I was wondering if you had a take on this as to why a stronger lager is popular in such a hot climate.
So first of all, I did not realize this was such a popular thing in Florida. I have not seen that many myself here in South Florida.
Oh, I
But
said for sure in South Florida it's not a thing.
yeah, but I've always been perplexed by this idea of beer for climate because 99% of the time in my life, I am in a climate controlled environment. Right now, my house is 73 degrees. I just got done drinking an oatmeal stout, and right now I'm drinking a double IPA, and I'm going to go on to a Pilsner. Each one of them was delicious. Each one fit my climate. I know when we started this brewery, people were like, well, no one's going to drink a quad in Florida. Like, what are you talking about? People drink 12% bourbon barrel imperial stouts that they're going out of style. You don't need to be in Michigan in sub-Arctic temperatures to drink these beers. So that was a little bit of a rant, and I'm sorry. It is a astute observation on that, but I have never really understood the seasonality of styles when man has controlled the temperature and the climate. We've come to a point where everyone has their own ability to do such a thing. And I guess I'll break it down to this. I'll make it more personal to me because however anybody else takes this is their own thing. I never have a time where I crave a Pilsner more other than when I'm maybe mowing the lawn. Right? But I don't mow my lawn because there's a lawn service in my community. So there's not a lot of time where I'm outside really hot and I want something to quench my thirst. I crave that beer in the winter. I crave that beer in the summer. I crave that beer in the spring. I crave an imperial stout in the winter, summer, spring, and fall. It's all the same to me, but maybe I'm a weirdo.
I don't think you're a weirdo. This comes down to something that I think that Joel and I actually talk about from time to time is that you're so on the nose of being literal, like you're you just throw out bullshit and you just tell it how it is, and like.
So am I bullshit or am I saying bullshit?
It's infuriating sometimes how right you are about things like that. It's just like I want to disagree with you, but it is right. Like it is. Like there is nothing that stops a person from like when people are like it's stout season. Like I remember when I first started doing our social for the brewery, it was like well I started us in like fall going into winter, but like I remember someone posting like having our nitro stout in like March, and we're like getting out of stout weather, and like they did it as a story, and I reposted it, and I was like it's stout weather all the time. And like one of our bartenders was like, really, you're gonna blast one of our regulars? I was like, I'm not blasting them, I'm just being for real. Like, you can drink that beer anytime. Like, we have it available year round. It's like you don't have to stop drinking it as the weather gets warmer. You come into our air conditioned tap room, you can have one. Like, if that's what you want. I've seen plenty of people do it. It allows us to keep it to be a year round beer. I, I I get that. I have definitely been a person who has been like, oh yeah, well, as the temperature gets colder, I want darker beers. I lived in a colder climate for a little bit. And even down here, when it gets to be 45, 50 degrees at night in the winters, I fucking love it. And I'm like, all right, let me go get a Sam Smith Oatmeal Stout or Sam Smith Imperial Stout or Expedition or something like that, because that sounds really awesome right now. I can definitely be that seasonality type of dude, but I know
There's
that it
nothing
doesn't matter.
there's nothing wrong with that, and you can have that. And some of those beers do come out in those times, so that's the only time you can get those beers. But I have literally been sitting at my bar early on and had one of my partners, while drinking a quad in June, say, "Do you really think people will drink a quad in June?" Well, you are. So there's at least one person that'll do it.
Yeah.
I think that there's a tradition there. I think that it makes sense in people's brains. And if that's your thing and you get more into stouts in the winter, have at it. If you live in a climate, and maybe if I lived in Michigan like I did when I grew up and I had seasons, maybe I would have a different perspective on this. I'm not ignorant to that fact. But I've never, or maybe Mike, maybe it's because I just want to be different. I want to be an iconoclast. I want to just go against the grain. I want to be a contrarian. So I'm a rebel. I just drink whatever I want when I want, and let the walls fall.
So there you go, Sam. Didn't answer your
Dortmunders for
question
life.
at all. But all right. Let's wrap things up here. Let's get into the point of the show that we like to call last calls. Point where we give each other an unspecific amount of time to say whatever we want, unopposed, uninterrupted, unobjected, and that is that. It can be beer related, it can be not beer related, it can be about whatever we want. But this is how we tend to wrap things up. So, Kevin, what is your last call?
Going back and forth on this, I had a couple ideas, but my last call is going to be about you, Mr. Mike Urevich. I've had a bone to pick with you for. No, I'm just kidding. Mike and I have been doing a podcast of some ilk together for the better part of about 8 years now, by my calculation.
200. Yeah. Sorry.
What's that?
I shouldn't have interrupted, but I said 200 years.
200 years, yeah. But before United We Drink, and I was invited on this podcast, which I'm grateful for, and I've loved doing it. We had a different podcast before for several years. And at the end of the day, you've been doing this show and the show that we did together for many, many years now, multiple different hosts. You've always taken on, as far as I know, the editing responsibilities and really taking the lead and doing the most work. A lot of times when it came to myself and Joel, when it came to United We Drink, we just show up every couple weeks and record and then we're done. Well, you've got to edit, you've got to put things together, you've got to look into new technologies. And now we're here and very sad that Joel's not with us on a regular basis. We hope to have him check in with us from time to time. But, Mike, I just really appreciate it, man. You taking the time and energy. You got two beautiful young kids that aren't sleeping on a regular basis sometimes. You've got a lovely wife that you want to spend time with. And I always look forward to this every couple weeks just to check up. And even though we can't be together on a regular basis, we at least get this time. And it's really wonderful. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I appreciate everything you do.
Thank you. It means a lot to me. I don't want to I just want to talk about how stoked I am for the point when we as a family can travel again. And I don't know when that's going to be, because everything with having twins just sounds scary. And I know that there's going to be a point where this can all be done. And I can't help, but my wife does the same thing. We can't help but think about where we want to go, what we want to do. We've got our boys our passports. Kevin still doesn't have a passport. He's 40 and he doesn't have a passport, and our boys have passports now. And it just gets me thinking about traveling again, and so many places that I want to go to. And I want to just really quick, try to be really quick, just throw out places that I know that I want to go to. First of all, they have to go to Philadelphia because they are my children, and I want them to meet my family up there and see a city that I love so much. San Francisco, to see a city that their mother and their father love so much, and where their mother spent so much time. And I want to take them to Seattle and to Portland and to the other Portland, yes, both Portlands, and to Minneapolis and see my friend Tim from Bitter Units. Love you, Tim. To Austin, to LA. I've never been to LA. I want to go to LA. I want to go to San Francisco or San Diego, to Denmark, to Japan, to Belgium, to Greece, to Italy, to Vietnam, Thailand, Australia, Canada. I've never even been to Canada. There's so many places that I am looking forward to traveling to, and taking my boys with me, my wife as well, of course. I can't wait to travel again, and I am so looking forward to introducing my kids to new cultures and new things, and the wonder and amazement and the awe of their faces, as well as the wonder and amazement and awe in my face, because many of those places internationally I've never been to before. And I'm turning 40 in 3-ish months. And while I do feel like my body is breaking down on me most days, I still feel like I have a lot left in me and a lot of years left in me to teach my kids and to enjoy things along with my kids. And I can't wait to do that in other places with them, as well as here, of course. But yeah, can't wait to travel. I have a travel bug, and I can't wait to itch it. All right. Kevin, do you want to plug anything?
Well, you plugged Old Favorite Friday, which everyone who likes to hear Mike and I talk about beer should go to our YouTube channel and check out the Sam Smith Oatmeal Stout review, where Mike and I visited Copper Point Brewing and we sat and talked about a beer that we both love and a beer that Mike picked out. And then just go over to barrelamonks.com, check out the things that we have going on. We do have a big release coming up in a few weeks. Actually, it'll be very close to the time this episode comes out, where we'll have a can release for Witty and Pink, which is our Belgian white ale with raspberries that we do for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Two of my partners are radiologists by trade, and the proceeds from this beer go to making strides against breast cancer. And it's something that's very, very passionate. Our brewery is very passionate about. We've been doing this beer for now. This is at least the 6th year, maybe the 7th that we've done this beer. And partnering with Making Strides has been wonderful. They're an arm of the American Cancer Society. And if you come in and pick up some Witty and Pink, the profits go towards a great cause. So please check that out if you can.
Here, here. If you want to follow me on stuff that I say about beer, about my kids, about life, bad jokes, I'm at Mike Loves Beer on Twitter. I'm also Mike Loves Beer on Instagram, where I like to post photos that I take and I'm really proud of, but no one tends to see because the algorithm fucking sucks over there. But hey, if enough of you follow me, maybe I'll have people actually see my photos. But the show is available on social media at United We Drink on Twitter, at United We Drink Pod on Instagram. We are on all of the major podcast services where you can find us, subscribe to the show, and get brand new episodes delivered to the device of your choice every other Thursday. And we're also at our website, unitedwedrink.com. We have a bunch of brands that we love and we like to put out there, who also, if you purchase stuff from them, it does go and help our show. I don't like to say sponsor anymore. I don't like to say affiliate anymore. The brands that we do love, they do give us kickbacks, but you know what? These are also brands that we believe in, that I believe in, and they are ones that I wouldn't put out there and just say, hey, go check these people out. They give us money. No, there's stuff that I myself would use, like Liquid Death, like Athletic Brewing, the American Homebrewers Association, Made in Cookware. Like, go check those folks out at our website. And if you buy stuff through them, it just goes to us and it helps pay for our web hosting fees. That's all that it fucking matters. Like, we don't make money off of this. Just make me not have to tell Kevin, hey, you need to give me money this month. That's all.
And if you don't have to do it, but you still want me to give you money, Mike, I will.
You wouldn't know anyway.
I would have no idea. If Mike started saying, Kevin, it now costs like $1,500 a month to do this whole podcast, and I go, sounds about right to me. Allie,
I guess we're gonna have to sell another one of Jad's locks of hair.
Allie, you got to do the Venmo again. The Venmo, is that how you do? Okay, the Venmo, do it. Sorry.
We also have shirts, buttons, stickers, all of that available at our store, unitedwedrink.com/store. Other than that, thank you everyone once again for joining us. We'll be back in a couple weeks, and cheers everyone.
Cheers.